I noticed her before I ever heard her name. The woman across the hall, always 5 minutes late to everything, always holding her keys like she'd forgotten what doors were for. There was something slow about the way she moved, deliberate, like each step came with history attached. I never meant to stare. But she had a way of making even silence feel occupied. That evening, the hallway smelled faintly of rain and detergent. My grocery bag had split open, apples rolling away one by one, and she bent down first. Her hair fell forward, dark, slightly undone, catching the yellow light. She looked up, eyes meeting mine for just a second too long. "You should double bag these next time," she said, voice low, amused. "I didn't think I'd be ambushed by gravity," I replied, smiling without thinking. She laughed, quietly, the kind of sound that doesn't fill the air so much as soften it. Her name, I'd learn later, was Elena. Mid-40s, though the number didn't fit her, she carried herself like someone both older and younger than that, restrained, but warm in small flashes. After that night, I started noticing the little things. The click of her heels in the corridor. The faint sound of music through her door, old records, always just a bit too slow. And the way she'd glance at me when we passed, like she wanted to say something but decided against it. Sometimes she did speak, about nothing in particular, mail delivery, water pressure, a missing package. But the pauses between her words felt heavier than the words themselves. One afternoon, the elevator stalled for a few seconds between floors. Just her and me. The hum of the machinery. My reflection beside hers in the mirrored panel. "You live alone?" she asked suddenly, not looking at me. I nodded. "Yeah. You?" "Mostly." A small pause. "My son used to visit more." There was a flicker in her tone, something like regret, quickly buried. I wanted to ask, but didn't. Instead, I said something clumsy about the weather, and she smiled, a small, kind smile that made it worse somehow. When the doors finally opened, she lingered, letting me step out first. But as I did, her hand brushed my sleeve, light, accidental, yet not. The kind of touch that stays with you even after you've convinced yourself it didn't mean anything. That night, I couldn't focus on anything. Her perfume, faint, almost citrus, still clung to my jacket. I caught myself replaying our conversations, every silence, every small glance. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything waiting to happen. The next morning, I heard a soft knock. I opened my door, half expecting maintenance. But it was her, holding a mug of coffee in both hands, like an offering. "Power's out again," she said. "Mind if I use your outlet?" "My phone's dead." I stepped aside, heart in my throat. She walked in, her sweater slipping slightly off one shoulder, revealing skin that caught the early light. She set the mug down, looked around my small apartment, then at me. "You keep it quiet in here," she murmured. "Peaceful." "I try to." She smiled faintly, her gaze drifting, from my face to the mug, then to the window where rain began again, soft and slow. For a moment neither of us moved. The sound of rain filled the space between us. Her phone buzzed just as she reached for the charger, startling her. She looked down, then back at me, something unreadable in her eyes, hesitation, maybe guilt, maybe something else. Then she said, almost under her breath, "You make me believe in timing again." Before I could ask what she meant, the hallway light flickered, and someone knocked on her door across the hall. She froze. "Sorry," she whispered, stepping back toward the threshold. "I should." And just like that, she was gone, leaving her half-full mug behind, still warm, still hers. She didn't come by for a week after that morning. Her mug stayed on my counter, chipped at the rim, faint lipstick stain near the edge, like proof that it hadn't just been in my head. I told myself I should return it. I didn't. Every time I passed her door, I slowed down, listening. Sometimes I heard the radio. Once soft humming. But no footsteps. No laughter. Nothing that invited me to knock. When she finally appeared again, it was by accident. I'd come home late from work, tired, unshaven, holding takeout, and she was standing by the mailbox in her robe, flipping through envelopes like she wasn't really reading them. "You've been busy," she said, not looking up. "Trying to be," I answered. "You disappeared." Her eyes lifted then, tired but kind. "I tend to do that when things get complicated." She didn't explain, and I didn't ask. But when our hands brushed as she handed me my mail by mistake, I noticed a faint tremor in hers. Later that week, she knocked again. This time, she looked different, hair pinned loosely, an old cardigan, no makeup. She held out a Tupperware container. "Soup," she said simply. "I made too much." The smell was warm and earthy. Lentils, maybe rosemary. She stepped inside before I could answer, the way people do when they already know you'll say yes. While she reheated it on my stove, she talked, not much, just pieces. How she'd moved here after her son went abroad. How the apartment felt, too still, at night. How she hated the echo of the fridge motor when everything else was quiet. "I was married once," she said softly, stirring the pot. "He liked noise, music, people, plans. I think I forgot how to live after it all stopped." She turned then, met my eyes. "You're quiet too. But different quiet." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. She smiled a little, maybe at my silence, maybe at her own bravery, and handed me a spoon. Our fingers touched, lingering a fraction too long. I felt it like static. I asked about her music, the old records. She said they weren't hers. They belonged to her ex-husband. She kept them anyway. "Some habits outlive the people," she murmured. We ate without much talking. Just the low hum of rain against the window, her breathing soft beside me. At one point, she leaned forward to reach her glass, and her shoulder brushed mine, the fabric of her sweater light and worn. I didn't move away. She didn't either. When she stood to leave, she hesitated at the door. "You should bring the mug next time," she said, not looking at me. "Next time?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "If you want there to be one." Then, as she passed, her hand caught my wrist, not pulling, just holding, long enough for the air to change. Her thumb brushed against my skin, almost absent-mindedly, and then she let go. The door closed softly behind her. The warmth stayed. It started raining harder that night, sheets of sound against the windows, a kind of rain that made the world outside vanish. She knocked again, hair damp, cardigan darker from the drizzle. "Your lights were still on," she said. "Mine went out. Can I?" I didn't let her finish. "Of course." She stepped in, shaking her hands free of water, her breath visible for a second in the cold air. I offered a towel. Our fingers met again, brief but charged, everything between us already too aware. The apartment was dim, the single lamp casting soft light. She sat on the couch, curling her legs beneath her. "You always keep it this quiet? It feels honest," I said. She gave me that half-smile, the one that meant she wanted to believe that. "You remind me of someone I used to know," she said after a pause. "Before everything got complicated." I almost asked who. Almost. But her voice carried a warning, and I respected it. She stayed longer than before. We talked about nothing, music, movies, neighbors we didn't like. Every time she laughed, she'd touch her neck, as if catching herself mid-mistake. When I handed her tea, her hand trembled slightly. "You always make it like this?" "Only when I want someone to stay." She looked up, startled, amused, something else. "I shouldn't be here this late," she whispered. "Then why are you?" Her lips parted, but no answer came. Only a quiet exhale, one that brushed against my wrist as I took the cup from her. The silence after was its own language, uneven breaths, the faint clink of porcelain. Then the knock came. Hard. Unexpected. We froze. "Mrs. Hale?" A man's voice called, older, friendly. "You left your mail again." She mouthed, "Don't move," setting the cup down too quickly. It spilled slightly on the rug. I stood there, heart pounding, while she opened the door only a crack. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Keene," she said, her tone perfectly casual. Didn't even notice. He lingered, talking about the storm, asking if she was fine. She nodded through it all, but I could see her hand gripping the edge of the door. When she finally closed it again, she turned breathless, cheeks flushed. You shouldn't, she began, then stopped. He'll talk if he sees me here this late. I don't care, I said quietly. You should. She took a step closer, enough that I could smell the rain in her hair, the warmth of her skin beneath the cold. You don't know what that kind of talk costs people my age, she said softly. Her hand brushed my chest, unintentionally, maybe not. I'm not asking for anything, I murmured. Just don't keep running from this. For a heartbeat she didn't. Her gaze dropped to my mouth, her breath catching. I felt her fingers curl slightly against my shirt, and then she pulled back, as if waking from something dangerous. Good night, she whispered, voice trembling in a way that didn't match her words. She left quickly, but the door stayed open just an inch, enough to feel the air she'd left behind. The next time she came over, she didn't knock. Just the sound of her key turning, hesitant, like she changed her mind halfway through. When the door opened, she looked different. Not put together this time. No lipstick. No careful cardigan. Just her, hair undone, eyes glassy from something she wasn't saying. I shouldn't be here, she murmured, closing the door behind her anyway. I set the book in my lap aside. You say that every time. And every time, I mean it. She stood there, trying to keep distance but already too close. Her hand hovered at her collar, fidgeting with the necklace she always wore, a thin gold chain, worn smooth at the center. What happened? I asked. She hesitated. My ex called. After almost a year. Something twisted inside me, not jealousy exactly, but something that felt a lot like it. Oh. He wanted to talk, she continued, voice too steady. Said he misses how I used to listen. I told him I don't even know how to anymore. Her eyes flicked up then, meeting mine. But I do with you. And I don't know why that feels like betrayal. The space between us shrank. I could hear the rain again, softer this time, like the world had dimmed just to make room for this moment. You're allowed to want peace, I said quietly. Her laugh was low, bitter. Peace doesn't feel like this. She stepped closer, one breath, then another. I could see the way her pulse moved in her throat, the tremor in her hand as she reached up, brushing her fingers against the side of my face. You make it hard to remember how old I am, she whispered. I caught her hand before she could pull it away. Then don't remember. Her eyes flickered, warning, wanting, confusion, all tangled together. I felt her weight shift forward, her breath warm near my jaw, the faint scent of her shampoo, something like cedar and rain. Don't do that, she whispered. Do what? Make it sound simple. Her hand was still in mine. I could feel every small movement, her pulse quickening, her thumb brushing against my skin, accidental and deliberate at once. It's not simple, I admitted. That's why I can't stop. She froze. I could see it then, the war inside her. Every rule she'd lived by clashing with whatever this had become. For a second, she looked away, toward the door, toward escape, and then back to me, with something like surrender in her eyes. Say something, I breathed. Her lips parted, barely moving. You make me feel cruel. Because you don't want it? Because I do. The words hung there, sharp, soft, final. She took one more step. My hand rose instinctively, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. Her skin was warm beneath my fingertips, her breath trembling against my neck. The world narrowed to that heartbeat, her body leaning in, my hand still at her face, everything fragile and certain at once. Then a sound outside. A knock. Loud. Urgent. She froze, inches away. Please, she whispered, eyes wide. Don't answer it. The knock didn't stop. It came again, sharp, insistent, echoing through the small apartment like a pulse either of us could control. Elena's breath hitched. She took a step back, almost tripping on the rug. I told him I was going to bed, she whispered, voice barely there. Who? My ex. For a moment I thought I'd misheard. He's here? Her eyes flicked to the door, terrified, angry, something in between. He was in town. Said he'd stop by to drop something off. I didn't think he'd actually. Another knock. Louder this time. Elena? The voice outside was deep, calm, too calm. You there? I felt her hand clutch my sleeve, trembling. Don't say anything, she mouthed. We stood frozen, so close that her shoulder brushed against my chest with every breath. I could feel her heartbeat against me, wild, unsteady, real. After a few seconds, the footsteps receded. Silence returned, but not peace. She exhaled shakily, backing toward the window. I didn't lie, she said softly. I just didn't tell you everything. I said nothing. I told him it was over, she continued. But he doesn't listen. He never did. She turned, her reflection caught faintly in the glass. And now he'll think. Her words broke off. That you moved on? I asked. She faced me slowly. That I'm making the same mistake again. Is it? Her lips parted, no sound coming. You're too young to understand what this costs, she whispered finally. Then explain it to me. Her hands clenched at her sides. People talk. They always have. When it's a woman my age and someone like you, they don't call it love, they call it something smaller, something meant to fade. Then let them, I said too quickly. She shook her head, laughing once, a quiet, broken sound. You think that's brave. But it's not you they'll tear apart. The space between us felt impossibly narrow now. She tried to move past me toward the door, but I stepped aside at the same time, our shoulders colliding. Her breath caught, her hand brushing against mine in the motion. Neither of us pulled away. Her voice trembled. You shouldn't look at me like that. I can't help it. She turned her head, just enough that I could see the glint of tears under the lamplight. You remind me of who I was before I started apologizing for wanting things. Her confession hung there, quiet, defiant, trembling in the air between us. Elena. I started, but she pressed a hand to my chest, not pushing, not holding, just grounding herself there. You should go, she said softly. I don't want to. I know. Her fingers tightened slightly against me. But if you stay, I won't stop this time. Her hand slipped away. The door opened, the cold air outside spilling in. Neither of us moved. I didn't see her for days. Her door stayed shut, the hallway too quiet. I told myself it was better that way, space, distance, whatever made it easier to forget the sound of her voice saying I won't stop this time. But forgetting her was like trying not to breathe. When she finally appeared again, it was late, after midnight. I'd fallen asleep on the couch, and the soft knock pulled me halfway between dream and waking. She stood there in the doorway, wrapped in a long coat, rain in her hair again. No words, just her, eyes tired, searching, unsure. Can I come in? She asked. I didn't answer, only stepped aside. She moved past me slowly, the fabric of her sleeve brushing my arm, leaving a chill that wasn't from the weather. I could smell the night on her, rain, cold, the faint trace of something like jasmine and exhaustion. She stopped near the window, staring out at the city lights blurred by rain. I told him it's really over this time, she said quietly. I swallowed. And you came here. I didn't plan to. But you did. She turned then. The look in her eyes wasn't hesitation anymore. It was recognition, that impossible balance between wanting and knowing better. I can't keep pretending this doesn't matter, she said. But I also can't promise you a future that won't hurt. I never asked for a promise, I said, stepping closer. Then what are you asking for? Her question trembled in the space between us. For you to stop running from what's already here. She inhaled sharply, her hand tightening on the edge of her coat. I reached out, slow enough that she could pull away, but she didn't. My hand brushed her wrist first, then her palm, then her face. Her skin was warm, trembling slightly under my touch. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she whispered again, voice breaking on the last word. I smiled faintly. "Then stop coming back." She closed her eyes, a single tear catching in her lashes. "You don't understand," she murmured. I tried. Trying isn't the same as wanting. That did it. Something in her broke then, quietly, like a string snapping. She stepped forward until we were close enough that I could feel her breath against my cheek, her heartbeat quick and uneven. Her hands rose, one resting against my chest, the other hesitating at my shoulder. We stayed like that, suspended between choices, the air heavy with everything unsaid. "If I cross this line," she whispered, "nothing goes back to what it was. Then let it change." A silence followed, long, fragile, full of everything we'd been holding back. Then, finally, she exhaled, a sound somewhere between surrender and relief. Her forehead leaned against mine, our breaths tangling, our hands finding each other like it was inevitable. She didn't kiss me. Not yet. But she didn't move away either. "I think I understand you now," she said softly. "You don't chase what you want. You just wait until it comes to you." And you came. Her eyes opened, meeting mine, steady, unguarded, alive. "Maybe it was time," she whispered. By morning, the storm had passed. Light spilled through the blinds, pale and forgiving, washing the apartment in that soft gray calm that only comes after long nights. She was still there, sitting by the window, her knees drawn close, wrapped in my old blanket. The air smelled faintly of rain and coffee, the kind that had gone cold but still felt like comfort. Neither of us had said much after what almost happened. We hadn't needed to. The silence between us had changed, less defensive now, less afraid. "You didn't sleep," I said quietly. She smiled faintly without turning. "Neither did you." I moved closer, sitting beside her on the floor. Outside, the city looked washed clean, rooftops glistening, the street below still dotted with puddles. She followed my gaze. "You ever notice how everything looks softer after a storm? Like it forgives you," I said. Her laugh came small but real. "Maybe that's what I've been waiting for." We sat like that for a while, shoulders almost touching, not speaking, just breathing in the quiet. The space between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was full, alive, something shared. "I kept thinking this was wrong," she said eventually. "That wanting you meant losing control." "Maybe it's not about control," I said. "Maybe it's about choosing something that feels right, even when it scares you." She turned toward me, studying my face like she was memorizing it, the way people do when they're still unsure they're allowed to look. "You really believe that, don't you?" "I do." She exhaled slowly, then reached out, hesitant at first, then certain. Her fingers slipped into mine, and I felt her hand tighten, warm and trembling. "I spent so long telling myself I missed my chance," she said softly. "And now I meet someone who makes me believe in timing again. You have no idea how unfair that feels." "Then don't think about fair," I murmured. "Just think about now." For a moment neither of us moved. Then she leaned in, slow, deliberate, and rested her forehead against mine. Not a kiss, not quite, just a quiet meeting of warmth and breath. "I don't know where this goes," she whispered. "Neither do I," I admitted. "But maybe that's okay." She smiled against my skin, her voice barely a sound. "You make me want to stop measuring my life in mistakes." Her hand came to rest against my chest, and I covered it with mine. We stayed like that, still and simple, until the world outside began to brighten. It wasn't a perfect ending, it wasn't supposed to be. But it was real. Two people, finally still, finally seen, sitting close enough that even silence felt like a promise.